This is a committee meeting of the whole city council. Does everybody have an agenda? You guys have agendas out there? No? That should be what's in the over there. Is that what that is? Okay, if anybody needs one, it's over there. It's pretty short. Here, okay. We're going to get started, and we're going to start with who would do the roll call?
Ms. Bourne?
Here.
Mr. Matuzak?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy? Here. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Ms. Williams? Here.
If we could start by standing and, if you can, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you can't hear me, please say so. I don't have much of a voice again tonight. This committee meeting of the whole, there's only one item on the agenda, and that is the designated outdoor refreshment area Levis Commons. I'd kind of like to try to establish the ground rules for tonight, and try to accomplish. The administration has brought forward an application for a designated outdoor refreshment area from Levis Commons, and our law director, Lord Alkire, has previously given us a piece of draft legislation at the mayor's request that we consider that and vote either up or down on that. And that legislation has quite a bit of information in it, all of which originates from the application from the Levis Commons folks. I want to make pretty clear what we're here for tonight. We're here to discuss the application for the designated outdoor refreshment area from Levis Commons, not to consider other applications tonight, because other applications haven't been brought to us. I'm sure there are people here that want to voice an opinion regarding that, and if we have time, we'll open the podium up for that. But I think the primary importance is that we all understand the legislation that Ms. Alkire has presented us with, and that to the extent we have any questions about it or would like to make any suggestions, comments, revisions, modifications to it, that we discuss it amongst ourselves as a committee. And to the extent we have questions that somebody out here might have answers to, whether it's the folks from Levis Commons or our police chief is here, they're here as a resource. And you guys have a presentation that you wanted to make tonight again? I'm just here answer questions?
Yep.
Okay. So really our committee meetings generally are for us to speak amongst ourselves, but we wanted to do that publicly. That's why we're having a committee meeting of the whole. We want to see it for a council meeting. And to the extent we have questions for anyone that can answer them out there, don't be afraid to raise your hand and tell us you'd like to address that. And I guess I anticipated this taking a long time, and if that turns out to be the case, I think at 6:30, if we're still going at this, I'd like to take a recess for maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll reconvene after that. But to get started, if everybody has the information in front of them that Ms. Alkire gave us weeks ago, it's her, I don't know what to call these things, I ask you this every time, it's your synopsis of the rules. I'd like to read over some of this out loud, not just for not because people up here can't read what they have in front of them, but so everybody out there understands what we have, what we're doing tonight. There are procedural requirements of City Council as it relates to this application. It says, prior to taking any action on the DORA application, City Council must meet the following requirements. Within 45 days of receipt, the legislative authority, that would be us, shall publish public notice of the application once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. The application will remain on file in the office of the Clerk of Council for inspection during regular business hours, and notification application was advertised on August 7th, 2019 and August 14th, 2019 in the Central Tribune and August 7th, 2019 in the Messenger Journal, so that procedure requirement has been fulfilled. Next, if the legislative authority chooses to schedule a public hearing on the application, the notice must state the date, time, and place of the public hearing. The public notice referenced in bulleted item number 1 stated for public notice that the Braintree City Council has received an application for a designated outdoor refreshment area pursuant to ORC 4301.82. The application is on file with the Clerk of Council of the City of Perrysburg and is available for inspection during regular business hours. The public hearing will be held on the application on September 3, 2019 at 6:15 in the City Council chambers. That has taken place already. Next, not less than 30 but not later than 60 days after the initial date of publication, the legislative authority shall approve or disapprove of the application by ordinance or resolution. This requires no more than a simple majority vote of the council. The legislative authority shall provide notice of the area to the Division of Liquor Control and the investigative unit of the Department of Public Safety. A public hearing is scheduled for September 3rd, and that is taking place. City Council must take action no sooner than September 6th and no later than October 6th, meaning we either have to approve or disapprove of it. This allows City Council the opportunity to discuss on September 3rd and again now on September 17th and potentially consider the legislation at the regular meetings. September 17th, which is when we could take the vote. October 1st, or a special meeting of the City Council no later than October 6th. That would be a special meeting because it wouldn't be a regularly scheduled meeting. So we have three possible dates after tonight that we could actually vote on this. Next, if the legislative authority disapproves of the application, the mayor may make changes in the application to secure its approval by the legislative authority. The statute is silent as to the process for this modification. However, it would suggest the standard legislative process would be controlling and legislation would be presented to council in a subsequent meeting. I spoke to Ms. Alfire about that a few minutes ago. And so as we're going over the ordinance tonight, if there's sections of the draft ordinance that any of us have questions about or would like to see changed or modified in some manner, we can discuss that tonight. We can't take a vote to actually change it, but we can we can discuss the issue and then raise it tomorrow if somebody would like to at the council meeting, make a motion to revise the draft legislation before we get a vote on it. So I guess what I'm saying is we don't need to disapprove it before the mayor makes any changes. Do I have that right, Ms. Alfire?
That's correct.
Okay. City Council determination. Inaction is not an option for City Council. Per the statutory language, the City Council shall approve or disapprove of the legislation. Therefore, legislation must be placed on an upcoming agenda prior to adopting legislation, designating a DORA and enacting specific public health and safety requirements as determined necessary by the City Council. Notice of the proposed action must be advertised once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation. In order to comply with this requirement, the administration will need sufficient time to advertise notice of the proposed action. She has proposed various timelines that may be helpful to your determination. For example, if the administration is notified on September 3rd, the City Council wishes to take action on September 17th, the advertisements will run in the Sentinel Tribune on September 5th and 12th. Similarly, if City Council notifies the administration that wishes to consider legislation on October 1st, the first one that I just went over is not an option anymore because that time has passed. Lost my spot here. If City Council notifies the administration that it wishes to consider legislation on October 1, advertisements would run on September 18th and September 25th. The administration would be able to meet the advertising deadlines imposed by the Messenger Journal for any date later than September 17th and would advertise in both newspapers. We have draft legislation already. The specific items included within the legislation come directly from the Levis application. It would be recommended the City Council discuss whether this legislation should be separately reviewed at a committee level when determining which City Council meeting the final approval or disapproval or whether City Council desires a committee of the whole in discussing this issue, which is how we end up here tonight as a committee meeting of the whole. If following City Council's review it is determined that City Council desires specific health and safety requirements be included with the DORA, the mayor has the authority to make those changes in the legislation to satisfy City Council. Specific issues within City Council's purview include a designated number of years for the existence of DORA. So that's in the draft legislation. That's something we can review and discuss. And if we'd like to change that, we can amongst ourselves discuss that and then make a motion for the next council meeting to perhaps change whatever is in the draft legislation to something that we would prefer. Number two, a designated period of review by City Council for the DORA. This can further include whether City Council would want a committee of council to review the DORA if it is approved. Geographic boundaries of the DORA, hours of operation for the DORA, any specific public health and safety requirements for the DORA. This can include items such as the type of safety measures taken within the DORA, special event regulations, or specific sanitation requirements during the operation of the DORA. These items will be the building blocks for the exhibits to the legislation, which we have. If the information submitted as part of the legislation is acceptable to City Council, it will be included as submitted. If City Council desires changes to the submitted information, those changes would become the exhibits, which is what we're here to discuss tonight. Items not within City Council's purview for consideration include an application for a DORA not presented by the mayor to City Council, inclusion or exclusion of otherwise qualified permit holders within the boundaries of the application proposed to City Council, logos and designs of the DORA materials. So that kind of goes over for everybody what we can and can't do tonight, and what I envision as our objective tonight to accomplish. If we can do that to our satisfaction tonight, and if everybody agrees that we would like to hear people speak, then we'll take the time to do that as well. Does anyone have anything specific to the draft legislation that they would like to address?
I have a procedural question, Jim. Can we, are you saying we can't vote tonight to approve or disapprove the application? That has to come tomorrow?
That has to be a council vote, correct? That's my understanding.
Okay.
And it has to also be advertised 2 weeks prior. So on September 3rd, and I apologize, I don't think you were here, Councilman McCarthy. On September 3rd, City Council decided in their council meeting to take action on October 1st on the application for the DORA. So advertisements have been ordered through both the Messenger Journal and the Sentinel Tribune for September 18th and September 25th, advertising that official council action would take place on the 1st.
Gotcha.
We chose October 1st because that was the last regularly scheduled council meeting that we could vote on it within the time parameters that we were given.
Understood.
Okay, so we would not really discuss this at length as a full council. So I thought a committee meeting of the whole would be an option for all of us to get together and talk about this, because it seems to be a pretty important issue to the public. If people all get the emails. And I kind of like this, if we're going to discuss it openly for everyone to hear our thoughts. So,
I do have a thing you don't mind.
Councilman Smith, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, I know Councilman McCarthy were here, there was a conversation about being able to take the calls into other establishments. I talked to Cassandra, who is the Assistant Deputy Director down at the Liquor Control, and that is not the case. You cannot take the alcohol into the establishments that are, whether they have a liquor permit or not, you cannot take it into any other establishment once they're outside. So I just wanted to make sure that's abundantly clear as well, at least from what they're telling me down at the state.
And it's interesting because we've received conflicting information. The Ohio Investigative Unit for the Department of Liquor Control told Chief Jones just the opposite information. As long as it was a non-liquor, as long as it was a non-liquor permitted establishment, such as a retail shop, that it would be permitted if that retail establishment had a sign saying that it was welcome. And he can speak on that a little bit more, but yeah, he reached out to the law enforcement side of it, and they confirmed just the opposite. One of the other things that we've heard.
So the state is as usual.
That's correct, and I know that there was contact made with other DORAs statewide to determine how they were handling it, and they were handling it as the investigative unit had explained, but had expressed that even liquor agents are confused by that issue. What we've determined has to do with the wording of the ordinance and throughout the ordinance, it references permitted establishments. And in one section of the code, it doesn't say permitted, it just says establishment. So there seems to be interpretation on both sides. That being said, I think if council desires it to be walking around and not going into other areas, that could probably be accommodated.
Okay.
It just depends on which arm of the liquor control, I think, is giving us the answer at this point. So, but Chief Jones had that conversation with the investigative unit, and he can share that.
So you're saying we can further limit it ourselves?
I think that you probably can. I think that this is a unique situation. It is a shopping center, and the ones that are in existence in the other shopping centers in the state that we've looked at, they permit it, they allow it. So if you want to take your DORA cup into a retail establishment, those other shopping areas are permitting it. And I think that that was the intention very clearly throughout the Levis application, was to allow a sip and shop type environment.
I'll be making a phone call after this meeting, and for sure I can tell you.
You two definitely need to.
I just want to get, I think that we're both getting conflicting things from the state. We need to make sure we find out.
You're talking to the people that write the rules, and he's talking to the people that enforce it.
Not talking to the head, the liquor control division.
Yeah,
Right.
and I also talked with the same person that Jonathan talked to and got the same answer that Jonathan got. And in reviewing and looking at other, as Laura said, other cities that in their rules that they post online, it says you can take a cup into an establishment. And she was very clear with me. I asked her the question 3 times and said, no, you cannot, no, you cannot, no, you cannot. So before, I guess that's, to me, that's a big part of it. The right answer. I don't know if she says anything to add to that or.
No. You want to go on record? Okay. See, I'm looking at the draft legislation. Exhibit A addresses the boundaries. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss with respect to the boundaries? You know, it includes undeveloped areas, it includes parking areas.
Yes, that just seems to be an issue I've had from the beginning. Is I don't understand why we want to include the parking areas, residential areas, the vacant areas. They're just such a large piece of real estate there to monitor. And
I think I don't want to speak on behalf of the Levis Group, but I would imagine that the reason for including the undeveloped areas is because they want to attract people to those undeveloped areas. And if they're excluded from the DORA.
I can understand that, but wouldn't that something that council can always add?
Well, yes, if I were to finish my thought, I would say at any time, Levis Commons could come to us, and I believe at any time we can amend the, it wouldn't be amending the application, but it would be amending the right.
You would have, right, it would be amending the ordinance that enacted the DORA to amend one of the exhibits with the
To
boundaries.
include the additional space if you got someone that's looking at some of your vacant space, land, wants to put a hotel, whoever wants to put something there, but they have an issue with the fact that it's not included in the DORA, you could bring it to council and council, could add that to it. I'm not saying that's my recommendation, but that would keep people from using the vacant spaces for drinking until such time that there's something in that space. If that's a concern of somebody's, if anybody's up here, if you don't want to see people just congregating.
Right, I just don't see any reason to have it in a vacant area at all. Or a parking lot. What benefit can come from having the DORA in a parking lot? Maybe someone can answer that question. The other cities I've talked to that have it, that specifically eliminated parking areas, unless it's right on the main street, you can't.
I suppose if we're in a uptown, downtown area and some of the streets, you wouldn't eliminate the parking because it's part of the.
So I can use the mic.
Sure.
I knew you were gonna make me do
Al,
that.
stand up.
As far as the boundaries that we selected, it was, looking at it, it's a very easy footprint to determine those edge lines. In fact, it's highway and it's ditch. So it wasn't so much as about those areas that we've included as it was about making a very clear boundary area. Yes, I don't see any reason why people would be taking their drinks and going and drinking in an empty field. The idea is hopefully down the road that will be developed. If they're drinking in the field, they're probably not with a DORA cup to begin with. However, we are open to discussing those boundaries. We felt like that was a very easy way to define the area as far as signage and just explaining to people and educating them where they could go with the cups.
Well, given the layout of Levis, the parking is all north and south of all the shops. So to eliminate the parking, I don't think would be too difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's something you're proposing.
confine it to the main drag, much like any other downtown area. I was just questioning why it would have to go all the way out to Wilkerson Way there, where there's no further development gonna happen out there. It's just strictly parking.
There are some events that we do in the parking lot, and obviously if we're serving alcohol out there, that would be a whole other separate permit that's not a DORA matter. But for example, in early October, we have an event coming up that we do in the back of the parking lot behind Blue Pacific Grill. Feasibly with this DORA permit, someone could go in and get a beer and go out there and walk around the event. Again, we're open to that discussion. We were kind of going for the ease of the geographical location and to be able to include like the Holiday Inn and some of those outlying businesses, for example, Flying Joe. I mean, if we're just defining the boulevard, we are losing some of those other liquor permits, and then we're getting kind of into a jigsaw outline, if you will.
Allison too, don't mean to interrupt. Part of
Would
the
you mind?
Come forward.
Come forward, say your name just for the record.
Mel Ayers,
Yeah, and your address, please.
1000 Hollister Lane, Perrysburg. One of the things that we wanted to discuss, and we've been in communication frequently with the chief of police about how to manage the safety and security. And we've got some information that's been given to you about how the existing security navigates the entire property, including parking lots already, which will then be expanded if we're allowed to have the DORA even further. And I know the chief has looked at that, and we know for a fact, based on conversations with other chiefs of police, that really city resources in terms of safety and security have not been increased by having a DORA. And between the two, I mean, obviously it's up for discussion. We're flexible. We want to talk about the hours as well. We've got some compromise there. But just from a logistics standpoint and managing it, we felt like we would take that footprint, and there you go. And some of the vacant land is not too far from being developed anyway, so, but we just had to sit down and go through it with you.
Have there been any residents that have opposed this, since it includes all that residential
That
area?
I'm aware of, they've all signed in, the apartments have all signed supported on the petition.
You mentioned the Holiday Inn. I didn't notice that they were on the application, so therefore they're not.
They were, as a purchase. Or are they just in the footprint?
They're in the footprint. They do
Okay.
not have a liquor license.
Okay.
But technically somebody staying there could walk back there with a DORA cup from a liquor establishment.
Right.
Right.
If it's the whole perimeter.
Right.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, then you're open to discussion, maybe compromising on that, but if Councilman Weber wants to make a motion to amend the proposed legislation, either he has to come up with his own proposal, or if he can use a compromise offer. I'm sure you don't want him to come up with his own proposal. So I'm guessing at some point, if you have a compromise in mind because of his concern, that you might want to offer, not necessarily tonight, but you want to get him what you'd be willing to do, because it might better serve you than having him come up with what he would like to do. At least you get it in front of him. Because the way this has to happen is he would have to make his motion at a council meeting.
I didn't assume I'd be the only one that's.
No, I know, if you make a motion, we agree with what you say, and if they don't like it, and they would prefer at least something else, if they never got it to us, then we don't know what it was that they were
I
wanting.
brought it up for the sake of discussion.
Right,
tonight.
that's what I would,
So did you have a certain boundary, certain
No,
streets in mind?
I was just questioning why it would include parking lots and residential. What's the reason for that? So,
If Mark stated it, the representative stated that if they have additions to the DORA, would those additions go through just a regular ordinance type process, or would we have to do the actual 2-week notice and all that to add to the DORA?
I believe right now, the only thing that you'd have to advertise is if you terminate the DORA once it's created, so I think we could probably follow just regular legislative process. I'll double check on it, but I think it's just if you terminate it, you have to.
And the reason I mention that is just say they do have a lot of property that's not developed. Each time a restaurant would come in and want to be a part of the DORA, you could look at having it updated every 6 months, who knows how often they have a new store. Just throwing that out there.
yeah, I don't know if that would
Consideration.
necessarily be a problem or not.
No, I'm not saying it would be, I'm just throwing it out.
Okay. Anything else, at least with respect to the specific boundaries of the area that anyone would like to discuss?
I would just state for the record that I also have the same concerns that Mr. Weber does as far as the boundaries of the DORA being awfully large. We're looking at 135 acres. The entities that I contacted varied as far as how big the acreage were for other DORAs, and none of them that I've spoken were quite that big. So as far as being able to, my next question will be about security in a minute, but the large area I also have concern.
It would seem to me if you already have the security available for this coverage, if the coverage were to shrink, you'd have that much stronger security in a smaller area using the same security. So it might be two different concerns.
President Tuesday? If I may, I have something I just wanted to add some thoughts. This kind of zoning is completely inappropriate to any commercial area which has mixed retail and services. Ordinary shoppers patronizing retail stores or citizens visiting law or retail offices do not want to be bothered by inebriated people walking around in front of the places they are to go. It is my opinion that this will not increase sales of establishments selling alcohol, and it will not decrease sales, and it will decrease sales of establishments which do not. The ability to transport alcoholic beverages outside of businesses or terraces makes it far easier for minors to obtain alcohol. Lastly, many people are not aware that this zoning is simply not for isolated events. It is every day, 7 days a week, from 11 p.m. to 11 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. All I'm really doing is going down the draft legislation to see if it covers each section. I'm just trying to cover the draft legislation, see if anyone has any concerns with what has been presented to us. And we had just covered exhibit A, exhibit B, qualifying establishments and addresses participating in the D, should be DORA, I believe. It's not DOA. But that's not within our purview. We can't include or exclude anyone from that, correct? Is that okay?
Correct.
So exhibit B is not within our purview, so we'll move on to exhibit C. Number, spacing, and type of signage designating the area. I think that kind of speaks to the security issue. If anybody has any concerns that they would like to address regarding the security issues that they haven't already addressed, or do you have any proposed?
Yeah, I'll try to remind myself going first. I would like to address the levels people if I could. You just passed out a new PowerPoint. The questions I had at the last meeting revolved security, number of security officers and so forth. And following up on that, does your security patrol, as it presently stands, secure and patrol the entire complex, including Basil, including the hotels at the far end of the complex? Is that part of the contract with that security firm?
As of now, no. But it would be expanded into that area. We've already met with that contracted company. We've already discussed the logistics, the hours, the cost to do all of that. We're just waiting to roll that out to see what happens with the DORA.
So at this point, and I know I asked this question last time, is as you quoted in your application, you had 217 hours of security. That force, is that all they do, security, or do they do also?
They do cleaning and security. Honestly, security needs at Levis are very minimal. We would be wasting a lot of money to have them out there just doing security, but they're all cross-trained to do security and cleaning. So they're constantly patrolling, looking for security situations. They're all background checked, fingerprinted, FBI, clearance, all that kind of stuff. But while they're waiting for a security issue to come up, they're picking up trash off the side of the road if there is. They're emptying trash cans. They're acting as an ambassador, customer service.
Because I noticed on the website for the company that, like here amongst that they specific to the contract at this point was, it didn't mention anything about security, but it focused on what Levis does versus like the downtown Toledo DORA, which specifically stated like hospitality, security, that type of thing. And I just wondered if that was the same people or not. You're saying it is the same people.
I can't speak to what they have on their website as far as their services, but they're most definitely all security guarded. Yeah.
I guess before talking with council, before I can determine whether I feel comfortable with security, I would like to have more specifics as far as the number of hours, the number of people. If you are adding to what you have now, my understanding was, and that's my fault for not asking specifically, but you gave the first presentation, my understanding was it was the entire complex that your security involved. And you're telling me now that it is not. So I do have concern of how much more security-wise that we're looking at.
Sorry. If you look at this fun little diagram here, this is, and I'll just kind of everybody, it's colored, fancy. This is actually a GPS tracking of 1 day of security on like a typical Friday. And it shows just their patrols, where they've been on the property. This is something that they have with them every time they're on the clock. They're GPS tracked. So that amount of coverage is right now just to the town center. It looks like I probably sent them down to drop something off at the hill or something. I don't know, they went off Bowser for a little bit. But that would be expanded through the whole DORA area with regular rounds checking on those other establishments and areas that the DORA covers.
And at this point, I know you said you're going to expand, the security ends right now at 9 o'clock, or are they there past?
They're there 10 o'clock during the week, and they're there until midnight on Friday and Saturdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does the city, or do you got hire off-duty police officers for the movie theater still? Because I know at one time that was happening. I didn't know if that was still happening. It is still happening. Is that just on Friday and Saturday, or?
Yes.
Until they close?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Listen, this chart that you gave us, it shows a lot of coverage. And you said this is 1 day's coverage? If we were to pick a point here, say this spot right here in the parking lot, does that mean 1 point during a 14-hour day, somebody went through there, or are they through there like every hour on the hour?
So for example, the pink line is that person's patrol route that day, and they're going through that patrol route numerous times throughout the day, and it switches up. So at any point, that route could have been hit 3 or 4 times.
Is that kind of an average, so 3 or 4 times in a day? Okay, so. Should be better or bad, is that every 3 or 4 hours then? There'll be someone called by? Yeah,
That seems reasonable. Yeah, that seems reasonable. I mean, between bike patrol, walking patrol, and their ATV patrol, they're covering a lot of ground.
If, let's say that's an accurate representation, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, do you think that's sufficient if there's the potential for alcohol in some of these areas that some of us might have a concern for, if there's only something going by every 2 or 3 hours? Or is that something that you guys would try to make it more frequent if you have a order? That seems like a long time in between.
One of the things that I wanted to speak about that was, to her point, we are working with block by block and Chief Jones as we expand the plan. We hadn't put the cart before the horse yet, but if you'd like us to do that, we'd be happy to, and come up with a plan so you have more specific numbers in the expanded area if it would become DORA.
I would feel more comfortable with that.
Okay.
So you have something to present to us, because
Sure.
right now we're just not sure how often you'd have people
We
able to
can
do that.
accelerate that. I don't want
I mean, I guess it goes along with what Jim's saying, the boundaries, you know, if you present something to us, we have something to work from.
Okay.
Because I can't tell you what you need
Yep.
for the security, but I can tell you what I would hope that you would have, I guess.
We'll get
Now
that.
you could be put in a position that something happens in a parking lot and we approve it, and they go, well, they only go through there once every 4 hours. Why would you approve something like that? So we kind of like to know how often, at least I would like to know how often those patrols would be going through these different.
Right. And just a reminder too, we do have surveillance cameras on all those parking lots, as well as the lights are on during all hours. Like they come on an hour before dark and stay on an hour after dusk. So
That doesn't prevent something from happening as much as it documents something that happened. It didn't prevent me from getting my speeding ticket this weekend.
This is gonna sound like a dumb additional question, but what are the hours of the public restroom building?
they open them around 9 a.m. and close them when the shopping center closes. So during the week at either 8 or 9 p.m. based on our operating hours, and on Sundays at 5 or 6 based on operating hours.
Yeah, one of the other things, excuse me, was one of the compromises we're willing to make in terms of the hours is it would help consolidate the amount of security and things like that required during the daytime hours and let them be more frequent during the evening hours. So possibly amending our hours to be not starting until 4 o'clock Monday through Thursday. So later in the afternoon. Our only caveat to that would be is if there's an event or if it's a holiday, like a 4th of July might fall on a Tuesday, something like that. But that's a thought too.
So Monday through Thursday from 4 to 11 and then midnight to the Cubs, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. And then the rest of the weekend would be the same as you proposed.
Correct.
So it sounds like we kind of moved into exhibit D, which starts with the hours of operation. So I think we covered that. Number of personnel needed to ensure public safety in the area and communication with the police. I think we just covered that unless somebody's got something to add to that. Sanitation plan that will help maintain the appearance of public health in the area. Number of personnel needed to execute the sanitation plan. Any concerns that they wouldn't keep their own property clean? I'm sure you guys will do whatever it takes to keep it clean. If you gotta change it midstream, you'll change it midstream.
Sanitation, when I researched I did on the other cities, sanitation has not been an issue with any of the DORAs, anyone that we've talked to.
Including those that are
In downtown areas, right?
Okay.
Not an issue at all.
Okay, and then we move into exhibit D includes some Ohio Revised Code sections. I believe this is the part that talks about where you can't take a cup. And I believe it says you can't take it into an establishment. Do you want to, I mean, we've got two different interpretations. I think the black and white on my screen says you can't do it. Do we want to? If it says you can't do it, we pass it that says you can't do it.
Right, you can have the discussion. I think the question might be is, what does this council want to have in their door?
Mr. President,
Sure.
the question remains, how would you police that? How would you police someone going in with a cup into an establishment that is not serving alcohol?
Well, I would hope the establishment that doesn't want alcohol in their place of business would police it themselves. I would hope.
I wasn't going to assume that, but I would.
If that were the case, who would that business owner call? Would they call Levis? Would they call
Absolutely.
the police?
Absolutely.
Who would, Levis?
Love security initially, and then they would contact the police and further.
And you'd be willing to let them know that's what they need to do if you were approved?
Well,
Yes.
Absolutely, I mean, that's the procedure for any kind of safety or security or emergency concern.
Okay. How would you guys respond to something like that? I'm just trying to picture what you guys would do.
If some, I'm sorry.
I imagine the merchant would ask the person to not, please not bring their alcohol in their business.
And if security responded and they were still not willing to leave, you're
Well,
saying?
how long would it take security to get there?
It would not take long. I mean, they're pretty mobile, they're all over. Once they got that call, they would be there pretty quickly. And then if the store is a non-participating DORA retail establishment, someone came in with their DORA cup and they told that person, hey, sorry, but we're not permitting the DORA cups in here, and they refuse to leave, then security would come out, and our security is really good with the customer service side of it. Speak to that person, explain the policy that it's not allowed in all the stores, they don't have the sign on there allowing it, and ask them to leave.
Okay. Trying to picture all the things that could possibly happen and how it's going to be handled. Because it's all going to come back to us.
It was interesting, I did kind of an unofficial survey of some of the retail out there, going door to door, so to speak. And a number of them said they didn't want it. A number of them said they would have to ask the district manager. A number of retailers welcomed it and said that, you know, they would have to sign on the door. It just kind of depends on the retailer and what they actually did. Furniture stores, not so much on the white couch. With the red wine type of thing.
We had a good talk about using that as a learning opportunity to teach people about their performance fabrics and how well it cleans up. But she wasn't buying that marketing pitch from me.
So it was a variety. It was a variety. There weren't, I can't say everyone said no or everyone said yes. So it wasn't definitely a variety, just for council's information purposes.
And I think initially some of those stores would hesitate, if they're currently hesitating to participate, may in the future say, okay, this isn't an issue at other stores, we would like to also allow the DORA cups inside. It's going to be just some learning curve and everybody getting comfortable with the process.
I'm looking at still in Exhibit D, and it says additional rules of DORA at Levis Commons. And the second one says all DORA beverages must be served in a new and unused official cup. How do you, that's one of the concerns is, you know, underage people getting a cup. We're in a cup whether it's got anything in it, or they're finding an empty cup and using it. How do you
You
monitor
can't
that?
take a cup back into a liquor establishment, so you're you're getting a DORA cup in each establishment and leaving with it.
Right.
So your question is, if someone discards that cup,
16-year-old finds a cup and he's walking around with it, it's got alcohol in it. How do you prevent that 16-year-old from getting a cup of alcohol on it?
I mean, it's,
What do you have in place to try to prevent that from happening? Because if you got a cup, the assumption is they're allowed to have beer, I guess. And I know the underage rules are still in play, but it kind of makes it tough to enforce. So who's going to approach someone and go, may I see your ID? I don't think you should have that cup with beer in it.
Well, a security person sure could.
I mean, are they going to be doing that?
What's Adams?
Are they going to be doing that? Because I'm sure there are going to be underage kids out there.
I'm sure there already are.
It's not a cup.
I mean, Starbucks cups, who knows what's inside there? It's the same thing. If they're looking to break the rules, they're going to.
And I think that's
The same thing with pouring something in a cup in a parking lot. I mean, there's going to be people who are focused on skating the rules.
Yeah, but I just think it's,
I mean,
okay.
they could have a Starbucks cup with, they could go in and get their coffee and go out to their trunk and pour in some rum, and now they've got a White Russian or
They're trying to
whatever.
hide the fact that they're doing something illegal
Right.
versus just blatantly, yeah, a cup.
So, and that's going to happen, excuse me, just in any DORA, but one of the things that we have in our plan is upfront proactive training. There's already existing training in the participating restaurants and bars for alcohol awareness and training. And what we're going to demand is a mandatory training that Chief is going to coordinate with the Ohio Investigative Unit, that prior to even if we're awarded the DORA, all the participating liquor establishments have to go through this training program. And then there will be ongoing continuing education with the police department and the Ohio Investigative Unit. So if you start at the beginning within the establishments and making sure people are checking IDs, all the things that we should be doing already, at least that's one proactive. It's not going to eliminate people from, doing stupid things or trying to bring in their own drinks and things like that. It's a process, and I think you've spoken with some of the other DORA participants, whether it's Toledo or Sylvania, and it's part of educating not only the staff, but also the people that are coming out to enjoy it. And there's so many people that have already participated in Toledo DORAs and now Sylvania and Defiance that if they're going to be coming out to Levis Commons, they probably already have a lay of the land and the rules. But that's not everybody. So we are taking a proactive approach. Don't expect to eliminate everything, but we'll deal with that as it comes.
Okay.
An interesting concept that one of the entities has that I contacted is they have what's called a wristband that they sell every day. And in order to get a DORA copy of the wristband, what that has helped with their security on the street is at least at the restaurant or bar, someone has their ID checked before they can get the wristband. And then once they have the wristband, they can walk around the door. That way security, police, whatever, knows that they're at least been carded and that they're at least 21. I thought that was an interesting idea. Now, there's also a lot of headache to that. And the headache would be is they get the wristband, you pay $1 for the wristband, it has a date on it, has a number on it. That way they can go back to the entity that sells the wristband, which in one case happened to be a Main Street project. And they can go directly to who bought that wristband and ID the number and know exactly who it is and why they should have that wristband. But it's an interesting part of it, it's kind of a marketing tool also, that they have alumni groups or whatever that rent rooms at one of the hotels by the highway, and they're using that as package type things. If your alumni come for your package, get your DORA thing as part of your package. So it's helped raise money, pay for sanitation, pay for cops, to do some things like that.
That's
So,
great.
as, from a security perspective, I thought that was kind of a different idea.
Is there anything else in particular that anybody up here would like to discuss regarding the draft legislation? If not, sounds like there's several concerns. I don't know the gravity of those concerns, but if I would suggest that if you guys have compromises, you might want to reach out to whoever up there you think might have a concern about something and work with them individually, perhaps. See if you can work something out if they decide to propose a modification to the proposed legislation without having your input.
And that would be just prior to the October 1st date, correct, Ron? Well, with enough time for them to reasonably think it over.
Right, prior to that, City Council will receive the final draft of the legislation on September 27th. That would be the Friday preceding your council meeting on the 1st.
So before that.
Okay.
And then administration will work with you if you have things that you want to communicate out to council, revised provisions.
Okay.
You can get them to Bridget or I and work that out to the council members.
Very good. Thank you.
You guys want to keep the communication open so neither one of us does something that the other one wasn't expecting.
President Chisak?
Yep.
If I may, I'd like to bring up one of the things that I know a couple council members have brought up to me, and that has to do with the time frame of the DORA. The law requires it to be no longer than 5 years. I know staff had made a proposal to the council that it be a minimum of 2. You do have the ability to regulate how often you review the DORA for compliance, and you can require the recipient of the DORA to make even say like annual reports to City Council so that you can consider that. And that may be something that you want to include within your legislation. Again, it would be an opportunity to afford passage of the DORA, but then allow the council to ultimately really check up on and make sure everything's working the way you want it to work.
Does the legislation, the draft legislation, include a period of existence right now? I have to get to that point.
I I think we had looked at 2 years, but I don't think the actual date itself is included. That was just in the administrative recommendation.
So absent any language in the legislation, it would be what?
I would say it would default to the no more than 5. If you want to restrict it, I know, looking at the legislation from other communities, they specifically put it in effect from an effective date to an expiration date.
Yeah. At the beginning of this meeting, I went over the specific issues within city's council's purview, and one was a designated number of years for the existence of the DORA. And then number 2 was a designated period of review by city council, the 2 things you just mentioned, either of which are currently in the draft legislation, correct?
Correct. Section 8 actually states it's just left blank because the city council hasn't designated how long you want it to be. Section 8 of the draft legislation states city council shall review the requirements of the DORA as established herein, blank years from the effective date of
So that's the second item.
It doesn't have a time period, it has a review.
Gotcha. Any review. Terminated or,
Yes.
what does it say again in section 8? Does it lock us into it? If we're going to leave it the way it is, I would say it should be established here in blank years from no later than blank years. Rather than we have to wait 2 years to renew it. So as to those 2 points, do we want to, we got to think about whether we want to make it a 2-year, program, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and regardless of what it is, if we approve it, how often would we like to go to review it? Do we want to receive security reports from the Levis Group? Do we want to receive some type of financial reports that have to do with the DORA? We can pretty much put our own conditions in here. If we want to, those are things to consider.
I'd like to consider a review after a year,
For a year, no later
just for
than,
the first year.
yeah.
And then, depending on how that goes. Just run that.
Yeah, maybe no later than 1 year from the effective date of this ordinance.
I just
I
want.
mean, can we decide at that time, Laura, when our next review will be? We're going to amend the legislation to decide when the next review will be?
No, we can draft the legislation in a way that it gives you that first annual review, and the city council on that date would designate the next period of review. We can draft it that way.
Good. You with that, Becky?
That's fine. Again, I'm just one person.
No, that's a good suggestion. Back to this. So we pretty much addressed all the issues within our purview then, right?
Can I make one more?
Sure.
comment or request? Would we be able to spend some time, maybe as soon as you'd like, to discuss the parking lot? And because which parking lots are the biggest concerns? Obviously the biggest ones, but there's a lot of smaller lots, like behind Flying Joe or, that type of thing. So maybe we can get a better understanding so we can get to that compromise position. That would be great. And then also, specifically what vacant land is the most concerning? Is on the far boundaries, like over towards Roshan Road, or, for example, the vacant land that's east of the Orleans building is soon to be developed. So we'd probably want to leave that in so we don't have to come back for that particular parcel. Just thinking out loud, so what we can do to get to a middle ground.
I'd say make a proposal and give your reasoning for it.
I'm sorry.
I would say make your proposal and give your reasoning for it.
Okay.
Reasonable up there.
Sounds good.
Any other thing? Anybody have anything specific to the draft legislation? If not, we can open the podium up to see if anybody has anything they want to say or add to it.
Not for this side.
Is there anybody that wants to put their 2 cents worth in tonight? You're more than welcome to. If not, this is a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be.
Jim,
Sure.
you'll take. Jim Hagan, 10741 Avenue Road. Just a quick overall question. I'm going to say you're discussing a lot of modifications of what's been presented to you, but I didn't hear any discussion whether we even really need a DORA in the city at all. My personal opinion is I don't see the benefit of it, and I haven't heard anybody speak to what is the benefit or who benefits from having this in place. So that's all I wanted to say is I don't see the sense in needing it, so instead of spending all this time modifying what's in front of you, why don't you just figure out, do we want it? And if not, it's a mute project. Thank you.
So that was going to be one of my questions is in terms of, I know hotels have been mentioned as part of the general interest level. Is there anyone from the hotel industry that's, could you just speak to what this means to you?
Hi, my name is İzzet Sözeri. I'm with the Hilton Garden Inn and the Home2 Suites. We do host close to 500,000 people throughout the year at the hotel. These are both domestic, coming from radius that is 100 miles statewide or tri-statewide, or sometimes smaller associations nationwide organization comes and stays with us. It's a great benefit for a hotel to sell. Every dollar that comes, having 100% from outside of Wood County is a big plus to the city. And it is a great tool to sell with that type of future in our business, the competition we have, sometime with downtown Toledo, sometime with Finley, sometime with nearby Sandusky, or when it comes to tri-state, any of those cities between us and them is competition for us. So having a future like that is a great benefit to bring some additional fresh money, pump some fresh money to the town. So that's the
But DORA in particular, how do you see that working? And appreciate the business you bring. But how does DORA in particular?
DORA, I mean, it does relaxes the people that is coming into town or staying in my hotel, going out, enjoying a refreshment here, and then go down the street to see another establishment. At the end of the day, drop more money to the area. So that's how my customer sees it. Because an average stays around 2.3 days, and during that time they at least have 2-3 different meals that is being consumed outside. And that brings a great color to what we sell. Not just a hotel room, but a destination. And DORA makes that a destination.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have you given any thought to what the economic impact would be? Because I've heard several times that it's going to be economically beneficial to the area, but nobody's been willing to put even a guess on what that number is.
I mean, there's a bunch of different studies. Conventional Business Bureau, I'm sure, will help us to identify some of those dollars or contrast somebody, but I saw that in my other assigned cities like Cleveland, like Cincinnati, like Chicago. It changes. An outside person staying a day, whichever way you look at, spends $500 in this area. I do bring around 400,000 or 500,000 people into the town.
So I'm interested in knowing what the incremental economic impact is if you have a DORA versus not having a DORA. I keep hearing that it's going to help business and grow business, it's economic development, but nobody can quantify it or is even willing to give an estimate.
well, I'm not qualified to provide an estimate. I mean, as you can imagine, you need much more intense research and maybe we can hire as a city to see what it is, a consulting firm to tell us that.
Maybe the city can hire somebody?
I mean,
The applicants.
the people that are interested of finding out exact dollars and cents could learn it that way probably.
You gotta weigh the costs and the benefits, and one of the benefits is what's it bring to the city, and the cost is, what's it cost the city, not in dollar terms, but just in the things that people have concerns with.
Well, I think, let me say something, if you don't mind expressing, but and we've talked about this, I know it's a hot topic, and, from just a high level, 30,000 square foot, it's hard to forecast, let alone guesstimate what it's gonna do. But for Levis Commons specifically, and I know Dallas can speak to this as well, there's up to 400,000 square feet of commercial and retail opportunity still there. And part of the development that we're talking about is between 40 and 60,000 square feet. So naturally that's gonna bring more employment, more payroll, city tax dollars. My guess is that UZET's hotel are already destinations, but it'll be even more so by having this DORA, which means more bed taxes. The other economic impacts are what it doesn't take from the city, which is city resources. As Chief and I have talked, and he's discussed with other DORA areas, they're not taking from the police department, and we won't do that. And same thing with the cost of cleanup and garbage, things like that. So we're paying for that. The Levis Commons Owners Association is paying for that and not taking from the city. So that's an economic impact positive to the city. So again, I know that's a real big generalization. I think after the first year, even in my restaurants, it takes 2 or 3 years to really have historical reference to be able to forecast your next 3 or 4 years. It takes some time. But I would think within the first year, at least, we would start knowing what it is and then be able to forecast it more accurately.
Okay, well, I'll just speak for myself. I don't want to speak for all council. Those were generalizations, but that's what
Right.
we have to work with. And so what I've got to grapple with is there are a lot of people that don't want a DORA at all.
Oh, I get to see.
And there are a lot of people who want a DORA somewhere else. And trying to figure out, is the benefit of having a DORA, is it going to outweigh the cost and the division that it creates, or potential problems that it creates? And we don't know what those problems are going to be. We don't know what the benefits are going to be because nobody can seem to quantify it. I'm sure beer produces additional revenue. That's no doubt about it. But I'm trying to figure out, is it worth it? Is the incremental benefit that it's going to bring worth the problems that it could create?
Understood.
Or the division that it creates. That's part of what I'm trying to figure out.
We get that.
So, like what you're telling me is there's no crystal ball. So it's a tough decision.
Fair. But one of the things in the legislation that you're working on is the periods in which there's reviews. So, I suggest that, after a year was suggested, which is great, if it isn't doing what it's doing in the first year to 2 years, then it would certainly be your prerogative to shut it down and maybe look at other options or no options. But we feel very strongly that if there's going to be economic impact because of the 3 hotels and possibly a 4th, 400 square feet of additional growth in there, the most likely scenario for positive economic impact is Levis Commons. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. Come on up to the podium, state your name and address. Speak loudly, please.
Abigail Flores, 10263 North Raglan. I agree with that gentleman. I don't think that the DORA would help the Levis Commons area. I don't think that the argument with the Starbucks cups with the underage drinking could be used because I don't think many people are putting alcoholic beverages in Starbucks cups right now I don't think it poses that much of a problem, but there would be, it's the family area, especially with the movies and the high school right there. And also, would you amend the ordinance if it didn't profit? Because no one's really estimating, no one can put an estimate right now on the profit if you put this into place. Because that's been like up in the air this whole meeting. Like, how much would this make Levis Commons or like the city?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Food for thought. Is there anybody else? Everybody saying something?
I just have a question for the chief. And I think for good reason, Mr. Weber, your question about parking lots in residential areas is valid. I mean, it's a good question to be asked. But if we created a modified map, and since the police would be actually the ones in charge of arresting or taking care of those situations where people are not acting properly in the right environment, would having the jigsaw of parking lots and shopping centers and to include certain areas and not other areas, how would that impact security from your perspective?
The easy thing would be to have one area, but that's not necessarily the best thing. My concern with parking lots are probably similar to what Mr. Weber's are, is now we're allowing people to take a beverage out to their vehicle. They may get in that vehicle with a beverage, they may not. Or worst case scenario, they finish the beverage and then they throw the cup on the ground. So there's issues with the parking lot. They could be out there drinking, they could be out there refilling their cup. So I do have some issues with the parking lots. Looking at some of the other places there's two in particular. There's one in Shaker Heights, the Van Aken district. They do not allow in the parking lots there. Liberty Center, which is in Liberty Township, Ohio, down Butler County, very similar setup to Levis, and they do not allow in the parking lots there along for those reasons. So I think it could be done. It's an education thing for the people, which would for a lot of it fall back on the Levis security, letting people know, look, you can't take it beyond this point here. But I think you could do some rearranging of those boundaries to keep it out of the parking lots to help some of those concerns.
So my question has to do with the monitoring of those very boundaries. I mean, you feel as though that would not be problematic?
Not from our perspective. For the people knowing exactly where it is, there would have to be additional signage put in place so they knew where that was. And it could be one of those things as simple as, hey, you can't have that alcohol there. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. To you're going to have people who blatantly violate it, and so that's when we're going to have to monitor that.
Thank you.
Chief Jones,
Yes.
I have a question. I'm wondering how you would monitor it for those who live in residential areas, how that would be monitored or how that would be handled.
As far as the residential areas there at Levis, that's one of those things that's going to be difficult to monitor. You take your cup back, to the apartment. Could you fill it up and bring it back out? Yes, potentially you could. So there are some, and that's going to be with any door, no matter where it is. Whether you could have alcohol in the car in the parking lot. So there's all kinds of possibilities that we have to look at. It's not a perfect scenario, but ultimately it's up to you as council to make this decision. And if you make the decision to allow the door, then we're going to do our best to and enforce it the way it's written.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Mayor, do you have anything you want to add to the? Anybody else?
I'll make one
Allison?
last statement.
Sure.
I mean, I think the overall message of this meeting is that there are some uncertainties, there's some question marks, there's some, how is this going to work and this going to work? And I think that's probably the case in all these other districts that have adopted a DORA policy. And we're kind of in the sweet spot of this whole DORA trend right now where it's still new enough that we are welcoming it to Perrysburg if it should pass, and kind of on the forefront of the trend, if you will, but also there's some existing DORAs that we can look to for experience and history and to see how those are going. The one thing that I can say that's different is that, to my knowledge, in a lot of these other areas where they've adopted DORA, it's completely overseen by a committee, and while there is a committee of us that are helping to push this through, Levis Commons as a whole is overseen by a full-time marketing, management, and security staff. We are there every step of the way. We are going to be monitoring this and growing and adapting with it. Whereas in these other communities, they don't have that. They don't have that constant oversight. I think that's going to be really essential in moving forward with this. Just the human infrastructure behind it to oversee, monitor the rules, be in touch with those restaurants and bars, as well as provide the messaging to the community and those that are coming out to enjoy it.
Nobody else has anything to add? Move to adjourn. Was that good?
Second.
Okay.
Aye.